Minnesota, over the weekend, protests in Minnesota around the country against ICE operations, including a massive one here. I stumbled into a block from Trump Tower yesterday. Um, and the Secretary of Homeland Security was on Sunday television saying hundreds more ICE agents are going to go to Minnesota. And still a lot of speculation about the legal front. Saw two legal experts over the weekend. One I talked to directly, one on YouTube, who said there's never going to be a criminal case here because the feds aren't going to bring one, and if the state tries to bring one, it will be moved to federal court and it will be dismissed. There's no absolute immunity, but there's enough immunity that would probably happen. So maybe they'd be a civil case, but the notion that this is all going to be adjudicated in a court seems unlikely right now. So I ask again what I asked folks last week, Hogan, where does this story go?
Where does it go?
Yeah.
I think legally, the attorneys I spoke to said really the driver, who is now deceased, her intent is irrelevant. What the question is does this officer have a reason or rationale to draw his firearm and fire? That's what's going to be adjudicated here. And I don't know that it's going to be adjudicated, as you just mentioned, not at the state level, but the federal level. And the administration has basically tipped that there is nothing to be brought here. The officer acted well within his rights as a police officer enforcing the law on the books. I think politically, though, as we kind of take a step back, one of the places that's still confusing to me, and my counterpart here can happily shed some light, I think, where does this go from a political fight when in another way Donald Trump has managed to get the left to stand up in support of not just the people committing massive fraud all over this country and in Minnesota, but also those violating law in stopping law enforcement from doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is enforce the law. And one other point that's fascinating too, Congress, for example, when you see them come out against all these actions and they're furious on those on the left, it's their laws they passed that this ICE officer was enforcing. I understand you're upset, but if you want to change something, change the law that you passed. The problem is I don't think a lot of them want to be on the record changing those laws. So instead, they'd rather stand from the cheap seats and be mad at an administration for enforcing the laws when we know the previous administration decided not to enforce the law. And so I think politically, this goes on through the midterms and will be a massive issue. If the Republicans are smart here, this will be something they continue the drumbeat on from now until the midterms. And one last point I'll make. In addition to the fraud, when you defraud people, you're actually defrauding not just American citizens, but you're defrauding the ones that the left purports to want to help, because those people aren't getting the money. People who don't deserve the money are getting the money. And if I'm the Republicans, I'm the NRCC, and I'm the administration, I am hammering the fact that law and order has to be restored. And I would point to those people and talk about the stories of those who have been defrauded.
Yeah, Missy.
I think we bring it back to Congress, demand an independent investigation. I think you bring Secretary Noem in front of Congress. I do hope this leads to
I'm sorry,
kind
let me just stop you on that. How are you going to do that as the minority? Are you saying after the election?
after the election. Yeah, you bring Secretary Noem to Congress. I actually do hope after midterms, this might be a transition of her out. You bring in somebody who has more of an executive style leadership, like a Glenn Youngkin, who had been reported before as somebody of interest if Kristi Noem ever left the job. I do think this plays negatively for Republicans for the midterms, because I think that independents are uncomfortable with the role of ICE operating in certain cities. I think that Democrats are going to use it moving into all of their races. I don't know if the chant "abolish ICE" carries as much weight as a lot of electeds feel that it may. I think
Right.
reforming ICE.
You mean as a negative or as a positive?
The positive. I think some Dems are grasping onto it. I don't think it's a positive. I think it helps us fall into that same trap where we ignored some of the conversations around immigration. I think it's a much safer position, especially for people running in those swing districts, to look at more reforming ICE, looking at training. A full
Yeah.
abolish ICE gets us right back to that defund the police
Yes.
conversation.
And here's the trap, I think, for Republicans in this. Do you remember at the White House when they put up behind the live shot locations there on the North Lawn? Many of you who are listening and watching today have seen it before. They put up the pictures of people, who had suffered at the hands of illegal aliens, the criminals, et cetera. I think the law enforcement action, while very important in my mind, and I think you do get a certain level of support for that, I think you need to be good at telling the stories of those who have been victims of crimes by fraudsters and by people in this country here illegally. Because when you make it about the Jocelyn Nungare's, if you will, instead of the person being shipped back to their country, there's a visceral reaction to defend people who are attacked, raped, murdered, assaulted, burglarized by those who don't have a right to be here. But focusing on our people getting hurt is a much better posture than just saying, law and order, we're sending them back. I think we should do that. But I think focusing on those in this country who continue to get hurt by it, and by the way, all across all communities, poor communities who are supposed to receive these benefits that are going to other people ought to be up in arms. And people who support those organizations who continue to push for the poor in this country to receive benefits, the veterans to receive benefits, they don't get them at the levels they should because of the fraud. I think focusing on our people, I think is a much better tactic than just saying law and order, law and order, law and order.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.